Have you ever tried to pitch to somebody to be either a conference speaker or be an educator, or pitch to someone to be a podcast guest, or for them to be a guest on your show if you have a podcast, or pitch to somebody for a business loan or for anything like that? Have you tried those pitches? Have you tried to sell your business in such a way where you are going to be in the center of attention and branding yourself in a way where you are speaking or in a way where you're engaging with the audience of somebody else's? Well, today I'm going to share with you some of my tips on how to pitch yourself to a conference, to be a speaker or to be an educator, or how to be a podcast guest, or how to get guests on your podcast as well. And then so much more. So the idea is that pitching is somewhat similar in all areas in that sense when you are requesting to be a guest somewhere or to be an educator somewhere. But there's so much more involved in the back end of it than just the front end of it, which is saying, hey, I'd love to do this for you. Because while that's true, but you really need to make sure that the back end part of it is done properly. And there is some research there. So that way you have done your due diligence. But then in addition to that, the other person also knows that you're involved, you're invested, and you also know something about them. So you're not just walking into it cold turkey. So even if you are applying for a job, hey guys, this would apply to you too, right? Okay, let's get started. So number one, research. Such a pet peeve of mine. I like to research, or at least my team is researching, because it is so essential to know who you want to be associated with you. And what I mean by that is that make sure when you're researching them, you're looking at what all they're involved in, what their values are, what do they stand for, and who they are, what they do, what are they selling, what services are they selling, what products are they selling, and even what are some of the education that they're giving out there? What kind of education do they give? Does it align with your education that you're giving? And also know their audience, also know the community that they're reaching out to, the community that they speak to. In addition, know the audience that you are speaking to as well. So where do you start this research? You can start this research on social media. Social media is such a great spot to start. And you'll find all of these different, conferences that you might be looking for, or people or businesses that you're looking for, in order to connect with them, in order to align and collaborate with them. And so look at LinkedIn also. So social media is a great starting point for this research. Other ways is that once you have finally found or gathered a list of people that you want to reach out to, look at their websites, read about them, Google them, read any publications that they've written. If they have a podcast, listen to their podcast also. Listen to the kind of people that are coming onto their podcast, or the guests that are coming on their podcast. And if they have any guests on their podcast, and also what kind of education are they bringing to the table, and who is their audience, whether it's a conference, whether it's a community that's built on Facebook or some other place, or whether it's a podcast or something similar in that nature. Who is their audience? Who is their community? What are they looking for? And is it a community that is similar to yours, or is it a community that is different from yours? And so these are all the different things that you're researching, and different ways to research as well. Other ways to research is go to some podcasts that you love and see who their guests are. And either you can invite those guests to be on your podcast, or you can actually pitch to those guests to be on their podcast also. Because believe it or not, if you are really connected to a podcast or to a conference, and you are seeing that their speakers or their guests are something that intrigues you, more likely than not, you might be a good fit for them as well as they are a good fit for you too. So that's another great way to figure out names and figure out connections that way. And don't limit yourself to just the industry or the industry people that you constantly see. I know sometimes we think that is it, when our Instagram feed is it. Like there's nobody else beyond the Instagram feed of ours. Whereas the world is global, entrepreneurship is global, and it supersedes all types of boundaries. And so don't limit yourself. And with the advent of, Zoom meetings and all of these like Google Meets and all this stuff, you can meet somebody in a different time zone across the world and have a beautiful conversation with them. And I say that out of experience. I don't just say that to say it, because I've had some guests on my podcast from literally all parts of the world. And it is so phenomenal to me and such a blessing as well. So make sure you do your research. And so once you've done that, you look at number two is the alignment. This is very important. Alignment is that you fit well. It's a good fit, whether that is a puzzle piece fit or whether that is a parallel fit, but it fits well because you don't always have to agree on everything. Your values don't all have to be exactly the same. But what happens is that if you are trying to pitch to a conference and you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to pitch just because I want to get a speaking gig under my belt. But there's nothing that really resonates with you in that conference. There's nothing that really connects you to that conference. A, they might say no to you, or B, once you do it, it may not be fulfilling because you realize that this just wasn't a good fit. And so how do you figure out good fits? Good fits is, well, it comes from the research stage also, because you're researching who their audience is, what kind of a community they're building, what kind of education they're giving, if they're even looking for people or not. The worst is when you pitch to a podcast to be a guest and the podcast does not even have guests on their podcast. You've clearly not done your research. And that is such a turnoff. Like it irks me when I get emails or DMs and they're telling me to, turn my side hustle into a full-time job. And I'm just like, do you even know me? Do you know what I do that you're just sending me this? Clearly, this is my full time. Clearly, this is not a side hustle. And clearly, you have done zero research. So, why would I say, okay, let's do this? What is the point of these generic template messages that clearly they're not connecting you to the person that you're trying to connect with? So, don't be so generic in that. Be more intentional behind it. And intentionality comes from the research, it comes from the alignment to make sure that your message and your values, your ethos are similar, right? Another thing to look for in alignment is, are they looking for a message like yours? Are they looking for somebody like you? Whatever services or offers or messages that you have to give, their education that you're providing, are they looking for somebody like you? And if they are, amazing, put yourself in there, add yourself in there, send out a pitch and tell them why you are the perfect fit. But there are times when they may not be looking for someone specifically like you. And what I mean by that is, of course, the education or the message that you're trying to share. They may not be looking for someone specific with that purpose or in that intent. Don't let that hold you and stop you. Don't let that be a bar for you to ask. Because unless you ask, you won't know the answer. So don't assume their answers, but instead make a space for yourself. Make a space where you show them why you are necessary, why your message is important, and how you will impact their audience. So they may not have ever had someone like you as an educator before, but that doesn't mean you can't be an educator. So what that goes back to is, what is their message? What is their purpose, their mission? And so look at that conference's mission or that podcast's mission or the educator community's mission and see if your mission and their mission can align. If you can pick something out of that mission and say, you know what, this is how I can impact you and get your mission across also, and really serve the same purpose that you are wanting to serve to your community. So don't allow yourself to not move forward or make that pitch because you think, oh, well, they've never had a lawyer on there before. Why would they want me now? You have a story to share. You have something unique to share. And so have that ready to go to share also. And that kind of takes me to number 3, and that is the message that you're trying to send. Not just the pitch. The pitch is there, but what is the message that you will be delivering? And have yourself maybe 3 or 4 topics that you can basically have an outline for, and where you can copy paste for the most part. and put it in there, because quite frankly, those are going to be your go-to topics. One or two will be your evergreen topics, and then three, four might be your topics that can alternate at times. And so evergreen topics are like your basic topics that you can literally talk about when you're sleeping even. And so you want to have those topics ready to go. And then you want to also have a couple topics that you can kind of switch around and adapt to not just the audience that you might be speaking to, or the message that might be delivered in that conference or the podcast, but also the message that is going on with the current climate and the current situation. So I'm kind of using the same content that I've already created, but delivering it with a different subject line. And so that way I can turn this pretty particular topic for the season that we're in into a more evergreen topic for other seasons for the future. And so have those topics kind of ready to go. Write them down. Have your group of friends or a coach look at it and tell you, this is great. This is where I would tweak it. This is where I would make the message more concise, more crisp. So that way people also understand what you're sharing, why it's important, the content that you're sharing, how it will impact the person that is listening to it, and who it impacts. And then it goes to the pitch, number 4. So the pitch is really important to me. And the reason is because the pitch is essentially taking 1 through 3 and putting it together in a beautiful package and delivering it. And the reason is that 1 to 3 is done is so you can deliver a package that is intentional, that is customized, and that is personalized. Now, with all of that, that doesn't mean that you can't have some templates sitting around, because everybody should have some templates sitting around, because that's what makes your operation smooth. So like that, I have some templates that I have for my pitches, but inside each template, there's a space for personalization. There's a space for me to tell my recipient why they're important to me and why I think that what they're doing is amazing, how they have enriched my life, but how I will be also enriching their life and their community. And this is the way we align with each other, or this is how we will be a good fit for each other. And so what happens is that you're able to really give a more wholesome pitch to your recipient rather than a very dry, generic pitch, which will basically make them want to say, next, delete. Or they'll say something like, oh my gosh, that was the nicest thing I've heard today. Thank you so much. I would love to connect with you. That's the kind of answer you want. Show them that you have studied them. Show them that you are interested in their business. Show them that you know what their business is about, and show them how they have impacted you or motivated you or inspired you, and how you can in turn give them that motivation, inspiration, and impact the way they want to give to their community, and how you would be such a beautiful asset to that. And I think that would be so much more impactful. Like, it makes you stop, it makes you read, and it makes you deliberate, and then it makes you also reply. And of course, this is my subject line. Subject line is where you're going to kind of grip them again. Don't make it generic. Make it something where it stops them. Make it something where they want to click on it. Because that subject line can be so generic as "be my guest." And they're like, okay, I've gotten that like 1,000 times. So make it a little bit more personalized, whether it includes your pitch or a pitch for a conference, something. Make it where it's something that will grip their eyes, that it will cause attention, and it'll make them want to also click and say, okay, that sounds like a plan. And number 5 is follow up. So whether you get a yes, a no, no response. So yes, no, or no response, follow up. Follow up with either a thank you, this is wonderful, please stay tuned, or for my other emails that you'll be getting because you said yes, or no, oh, I'm sorry, but you know what, I'm going to connect with you maybe in a couple months, and maybe we can revisit this. And then put it into a email category, or a folder in your emails where it says collaborations to revisit, where I will reach back, I will turn around and just circle back with them and say, hey, I know we talked about this a couple months ago, but I just wanted to touch base with you and say hi, and maybe acknowledge something that they're doing, admire something that they're doing, and just say, hey, I know this is coming up. I'd love to, be considered to be a guest speaker or an educator. Let me know.